Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be talking all about the Wet n Wild Color Icon eyeshadow palettes. I have two of them here with me. I have a Rosé in the Air and also Comfort Zone. I've been wanting to try these guys out for a really long time now, and I finally got to test them out and I've gathered my opinion. I will be doing a demo on each of the palettes, so there'll be two demos in today's video, and I'll also be sharing my thoughts on the formula since it is fairly new to me. So if you guys are interested in all of that, then just continue watching. So these are the Color Icon eyeshadow palettes. They come with 10 eyeshadows in both of them. I think there are a total of 3 palettes that you can get, but I obviously just got 2. These are $5 US each. In New Zealand, I think it's about 11 to 12 New Zealand dollars. I can't exactly remember because I got these so long ago. It is around that price range. I just can't remember, but it is a good deal because you are getting 10 eyeshadows and that is super affordable. But before I talk about the palettes individually, I just want to talk about the formula and the shadows in general first. So what I have noticed when I was using these shadows, the mattes can come off a little bit patchy, especially the darker shadows in both palettes, and it's a little bit harder to blend out. They do skip over. They are also not as pigmented. Like the pigmented, like you will see them on your skin, but they are not pigmented like Colourpop or Anastasia or Morphe even. Like there's something about it where it's very dull and dusty. There isn't that opaqueness with the pigment, if that makes any sense. Like it is pigmented where it will show up on your skin, but there is no opaqueness to the color. And I also noticed with the mattes that you have to really build up the product. So you're constantly going back into these shadows to really build up the product, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I think for beginners, if a shadow is buildable, it's probably a better thing for you because you will avoid less mistakes because they are easier to erase. But for someone like me, I use eyeshadows every single day in my makeup routine. I would prefer my shadows to be pigmented right off the bat and I can just blend it out that way. So it really depends on your preference. I'm a person that just likes a pigmented matte shadow, but you might be a person that loves buildable eyeshadows. So it really depends on you and what you are kind of looking for. I just noticed that with the mattes. So for me, the mattes are really not the best. I don't know why I feel bad about talking about the negatives with these palettes because they are so affordable. It's like, what do you expect from affordable palettes? You know what I mean? But when I compare it to Colourpop, you know, the price range honestly is not that much of a difference. I do feel like Wet n Wild is obviously a lot easier to get your hands on. You can go in store and swatch it, but just comparing the quality from Colourpop to Wet n Wild, I feel like there's a huge difference, especially with the mattes. And you guys might think like I'm biased to Colourpop, but you could even compare it to Juvia's Place, which is super affordable as well. Just the difference between the mattes, like there's a huge difference between the two, and I think mattes are super important to an eye look, and when the mattes aren't good, I feel like the whole eye look isn't good. I mean, I like how both looks turned out. I don't know, I feel like I could have created these exact looks with my Colourpop palettes or with any other palette I have that I enjoy and just had an easier time with it. I just feel like the colors look a little bit dull, a little bit gray, cool tone on me, and I'm not like a fan of that because with the shadows in Rosé in the Air, they seem a lot warmer, but on my eyes they don't seem as bright and warm. I wouldn't say like they are the worst. They're not crazy patchy. They don't skip like crazy, but just from what I have used before, I have other things that I like a lot better. But as for the shimmers, I think the shimmers are actually really beautiful. But in saying that, a lot of shimmers are always great, like around the border. You know, I feel like shimmers and metallics are very easy to get right. So I'm not like too surprised about it. If you're in high school and you just want to use an eyeshadow palette from the drugstore, I wouldn't say this is like a bad palette at all. You'll probably have a lot of fun with it. They will blend very easily for you. There's no issue with it, but I have tried other products that work a lot better and they are in a similar price range. So just overall, I'm not like wowed by these palettes, but I'm not underwhelmed either. You are getting what you pay for. For brands like Colourpop and Juvia's Place, you are getting what you pay for and more. So that's just how I kind of want to describe it. But just briefly talking about each palette, I first have Comfort Zone, which is kind of like the jewel tone palette. This palette to me, I think is very hard to create an eye look with because you only get 2 matte shadows and they both say transition on them. You don't get a lot of mattes to play with and that makes it very tricky. I did try to use this like dark forest green as a matte, very choppy. I think the lighter shimmers are really pretty, but it's really up up to you if it's like worth the $5 to get like a couple good shades in here, when you can just save up a little bit more and like invest in a ColourPop palette or in a Juvia's Place palette. Comfort Zone is not one that I see myself using a lot. It's not one that I would even recommend. But as for Rosé in the Air, I much prefer this one over Comfort Zone. These colors are just a little less neutral than Comfort Zone, and you do get much more mattes in here to play with. There are only like 2 shimmers in here, which is great. But again, the mattes weren't as great. I feel like they weren't pigmented enough to really shine through. The only color that I really liked was this like light gold champagne color, which I'm wearing in my crease today. But other than that, everything else is just mediocre to me. The shades in here you can easily dupe. I know a lot of people compare this to the Mono Renaissance. Although they look very, very similar, the payoff in the Anastasia one is like incredible. Purple here, this like pink fuchsia purple. There's a very similar one in the Anastasia one called Love Letter. Love Letter will automatically show up on your eye. Like this one barely, like you can barely see it on my eyes. So honestly, if I had to choose one between the two, I would just go for Mono Renaissance. And you guys know I'm not like the biggest fan of Mono Renaissance, but I would still choose Mono Renaissance over Rosé in the Air. That was pretty much all I had to say about the Color Icon eyeshadow palettes. I think you guys kind of get the gist of my opinion. Honestly, a lot of people were hyping these up, so I did have a bigger expectation for these, and they are just not my favorite, just being straight up honest. I mean, if you're on the budget, you're in high school, you just want to play with some eyeshadows, I think this is a great way to go. It's cruelty free at the drugstore as well, so I'm not gonna like write it off completely, but it's definitely not my favorite. I personally wouldn't recommend it, but you know, that's just my opinion. I think a lot of you guys might disagree with me, and you guys actually might really like these palettes, but for me personally, they just are not my favorite. So with that being said, we can now move on to the 2 eyeshadow looks that I created with these 2 palettes. I'm going to take the first shade in the palette that has the transition stamp on it. I'm going to be using this as our transition shadow by placing that into the crease using windshield wiping motions. And then taking the other shade that says transition, the darker brown, I'm just going to put this all over my lid space first using the most product there, and then I'm going to slowly blend it up towards my transition shadow. This is going to start creating the dark smokiness to this eye look. And then taking this dark sparkly green shadow, I'm going to place that right on top of the previous shade. I'm going to keep it lower and just start creating more of like a gradient. This shade does have a bit of glitters in it, but once you apply it, a lot of the glitters do fade out, so it kind of works as a matte. And now taking a bit of the medium shimmer green, I'm using this Shadow Wet, and I'm going to place that all over the previous shade. And because we placed such a dark color underneath this, it's really going to be a great base to make this shadow pop out a lot more and really bring out those green tones. And using it wet is just going to make it appear a lot more metallic. And now using this light taupey color, also using this Shadow Wet as well, I'm just going to place that right at the center of my lid just to give a little bit more dimension to the previous green shimmer. I feel like it's a little bit too flat. And I'll just take my previous brush and just add in the other green in, just kind of mixing the two together. I'm just going to take a makeup wipe and just clean that mess underneath. Now this palette doesn't have that much fallout, but because I knew my foundation is not on yet, I just went really heavy-handed. I just knew that I was going to wipe this all away, so I wasn't really too worried or cautious about it. And then taking that same medium matte brown shade, we're going to run this on our lower lash line right from the outer corner to the inner corner, and just at the outer corner making sure we're connecting with the wing. And then taking a bit of that dark shimmer green that turns into a matte, carefully place this up against my lower lash line. Because this does have a little bit of glitters, you just want to be careful when you're working that close to your lash line because you don't want those glitters to get into your eye. And now just taking my Ardency in Modster eyeliner in the shade Coffee, and I'm going to use this to tightline my entire lower lash line. And lastly, just taking this pretty light golden champagne shimmer shadow. I'm going to use this shadow to highlight my brow bone and also my inner corners. Alright guys, so the tutorial for the Comfort Zone palette is now completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the Boudoir Lights from House of Lashes. And for my lip pairing, I decided to go with the Dose of Colors liquid lipstick in the shade My Main. But this pretty much completes this look. I know it's a very simple look to create, very easy techniques. And I definitely have used this color combination before. It's definitely not new to me. But it's great that you can create this kind of look with more expensive palettes and you still can do it with a more affordable palette like this one. So to get started with the second tutorial, I'm going to be going in with the warmer transition, the one on the bottom. And like it says, we're going to be using this as our transition shadow. So I'm just going to put that straight into my crease using windshield wiping motions. As always, you guys see me do this multiple times. And then taking the warm burnt orange shadow, we're going to place that right in the outer corner of our eye and then slowly bringing that towards the inner crease. We just want a little bit more warmth into this eye look. And then using the darkest brown, I'm going to put that right in the outer corner once again, and then I'm slowly going to bring it in towards the inner crease. Just taking my makeup wipe, I'm going to use this just to clean up that outer edge and make it very sharp. Just taking some concealer on the back of my hand, I'm going to start cutting out my crease. I'm going to place the concealer right at the inner part of my lid space, like the inner third, and I'm going to bring that towards my crease line. But because I have uneven eyelids, I always like to take this eye a lot higher to match it with my bigger eye, which is my left eye. And then I'll go in with a thinner paintbrush and I will use that to really carve out the shape and the curve of the cut crease and making it super sharp. And I always like to go in with a small teensy-weensy paintbrush and using the darkest shadow. I like to go above the cut crease line just to make the cut crease pop out a lot more. And right where the concealer meets the matte, I'm just gonna blend it out with my finger. I feel like once you put these shimmer shadows on top, this will help it blend into the matte a lot more. Because if you just have a harsh line there, you're gonna see where the shimmers stop and it's gonna be a lot harder to blend out. So just with my ring finger, I just like to blend it out where they meet and fade it into the matte. Then I'll be taking the light champagne gold using this shadow wet. I'm gonna place that right on top of the concealer, stopping it towards the middle of my eye where the concealer fades out. And then taking the matte purple pink raspberry shade, I'm going to use this to blend in the shimmers and the mattes where they kind of meet. This shadow is not as pigmented as I was expecting it to be, but I already did it on my other eye, so of course I have to match it up. Going into that first transition shadow that we first used, I'm going to run this all over my lower lash line just to get a good wash of color underneath there and also to match the shadows on our lids as well. And then just taking that dark brown eyeshadow, I'm going to push this up against my lower lash line from the outer and inner corner once again. And then just taking my Ardency in Modster eyeliner in the shade Coffee, I'm going to use this to tightline my entire lower lash line. Alright guys, so this is the last look completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the Boudoir Light from House of Lashes. And for my final lip pairing, I decided to go with the Luxe lipstick from Colourpop in the shade Third Eye. I know this look is a very typical look from me, but I just really wanted to play around with the shadows and see how it worked to create eye looks that I would always wear. So hopefully you guys still enjoyed it either way. Alright guys, so this is going to complete my review for today. Hopefully you guys found it helpful, even if it wasn't the most positive one. But I'm just being honest, and I'm only going to recommend products to you guys that I truly think are worth it and worth your time as well. But if you guys did find this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and also let me know your thoughts on these palettes down below. I would love to hear your opinion. I feel like these palettes are something that's very hyped up and is very well loved from a lot of people. I feel like I'm the only one that didn't like it as much, so let me know your thoughts down below if you agree or disagree. And with that being said, that completes today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!